Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Gopi Jana Vallava Girivaradhari Gopi Jana Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Jasodanandana Brajan Janaranjana Jasodanandana Brajan Janaranjana Jamunatira Vanachari Jamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadha Sri Vasari Gaura Bhakta Vrindam Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadha Sri Vasa Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare Hare 389 Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Jai Gauda Haribol, oh Haribol, Haribol, Jai Gauda Haribol. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Govardhana ki jai, Srila Govardhana ki jai, Srila Krishna Balaram Giriraj Maharaj ki jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. We're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, 3rd Canto, Status Quo, Chapter 18, text number 9. In the old days, there was no books available, even after Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And the devotees had to write and handwrite the books in order for them to eventually be distributed. And there is this story about Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur wanting to get a copy of the Chaitanya Charitamrita. And he took years to find a copy of that. So sometimes the pastime is that the books are not there, and then we have to endeavor and value now the facility of having these books everywhere, even for free, online and things like that. So it's a special mercy, and as the Bhagavatam explains, this is the best era because of the power of the Sankirtan movement. We all can easily achieve perfection. And these books are, as Prabhupada explained, very confidential. Krishna himself says it's very confidential, right? This is the most confidential part of the Vedas. Explains at the end of chapter 15. This is the most confidential. And here I am giving it to you because you are my devotee and my friend. So very valuable to have these books. One time the devotees were discussing what sort of deities shall we install. And Prabhupada said, jokingly, not so jokingly, he said, just install my books, because my books are deities. So that's the power of Srila Prabhupada's books. And there's a reason why he just brought books and a small pair of cartels, 2 sets of clothes, and how much is it? $7 or something like that, equivalent, that he never used actually, because then he started distributing his books and getting some donations. And after years, the devotees found, I don't know, was a $20 bill or something that he sold a set of Bhagavatam, meaning a set means the first canto only, three volumes. He was coming down from the ship, and then he told Captain, what was his surname? Pandya. Says, I have no money, because he had brought rupees. And so he said, would you mind purchasing a set? So I think he said 15, but the captain gave him $20 bill. So he kept that $20, and that's how Srila Prabhupada started his preaching in America. Okay, so we don't have, I don't know the Bhagavatam by heart. Anyone can lend me one of those? I wish I would. Okay. Paranu Shaktam Tapani Yokpakalpam Paranu Shaktam Tapani Yopakalpam Mahagadam Kanchana Chitra Damsam Mahagadam Kanchana Chitra Damsam Marmani Avikshnam Pratudhantam Duruktai Marmani Avikshnam Pratudantam Duraktai Prachandamanyu Prahashams Tambhavase Prachandamanyu Prahasham Tambhavase Paranushaktam Tapani Yopalkapam Paranushaktam Tapani Yopakalpam Mahagadam Kanchana Chitradamsham Marmanya Vikshnam Pratudantam Duruktai Chandamanyu Prahasham Stambhavase Paranushaktam Tapani Yopakalpam Mahagadam Kanchana Chitradamsham Marmanya Vikshnam Pratudantam Duruktai Prachandamanyu Prahasham Stambhavase Paranushaktam Tapani Yopakalpam Anyone else? No? Para from behind, Anushaktam, who followed very closely. Tavaniya Upakalpam, who had a considerable amount of gold ornaments. Mahagadam, with a great mace. Kanchana, golden. Chitra, beautiful. Damsham, armor. Marmani, the cord of the heart. Adikshnam, constantly. Pratudantam, piercing. Duruktai, by abusive words. Prachanda, terrible. Manu, anger. Prahasham, laughing. Tam, to him. Bhavase, he said. Translation: the demon who had a wealth of ornaments, bangles, and beautiful golden armor on his body, chased the Lord from behind with a great mace. The Lord tolerated his piercing ill words, but in order to reply to him, he expressed his terrible anger. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. The Lord could have chastised the demon immediately while the demon was deriding the Lord with ill words. But the Lord tolerated him to please the demigods and to show that they should not be afraid of demons while discharging their duties. Therefore, his toleration was displayed mainly to drive away the fears of the demigods, who should know that the Lord is always present to protect them. The demon's derision of the Lord was just like the barking of dogs. The Lord did not care about it, since he was doing his own work in delivering the earth from the midst of the water. Materialistic demons always possess large amounts of gold in various shapes, and they think that a large amount of gold, physical strength, and popularity can save them from the wrath of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Om Gyanatimidandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Chakshurun Militam Jena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Namam Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swamini Tinamine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharine Nirvisesha Sunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Vanchakalpataruyas Chakripa Sindhu Vyaevacha Patitanam Pavanevyo Vaishnavevyo Namo Namaha. So we are reading this section of the third canto, which is the second longest of all the Bhagavatam cantos. The longest is the 10th canto with 90 chapters, and this one has 33. And perhaps we can say that this particular pastime is, to some extent, the first time where Krishna's emotions are presented, like really in depth. Krishna appears in the first canto, in chapter 7 onwards, where the Pandavas take him as the guide, as a guru, mentor, protector. So we can see that the Bhagavatam has a certain sequence, and it's basically preparing us to hear the message that Sukadeva Goswami is presenting to Parikshit Maharaj. The first canto is practically like a prelude of what's going to be discussed. We have the sages of Naimisharanya presenting a number of questions, famous 6 questions. The first one, the main one, it's what is best for everyone. Mhm. Similar to the question that Arjuna presents, the first question that Arjuna presents to Krishna in chapter 2. What is best for me? The same word, Shreya, is used. So these 19 chapters of the first canto prepare the ground. It's like when you want to plant something, you have to have fertile ground. So we have to have our consciousness ready. We have to have the attitude, the humility to listen and to ask proper questions from the spiritual master. So those 19 chapters are basically devoted to prepare the ground, to make us understand what does it mean to be a Sishya. Sishyasteham saditamam prapanam. Arjuna tells Krishna, please instruct me. Shishya, that's the word. So here in the first canto, first we find this set of gurus, 4 or 5 gurus, Sutta Goswami, Narada Muni, Krishna himself, grandfather Vishma, and finally the appearance of Sukadev. So all this is just to, as I said, prepare the ground for the Bhagavatam as presented by Sukadev Goswami is described, starting from second canto onwards. The second canto also, it's kind of a summary, just like the second chapter of the Gita and the 18th chapter of the Gita are summaries. As Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Srila Prabhupada, the Acharyas explained, there are 2 sets of summaries of the Gita to make it easier, right? In fact, even if we read just the introduction of the Bhagavad Gita, we get the whole Bhagavad Gita right there. So this is the intention of Krishna, through the agency of his devotees, his representatives, to make it easier for us. So the first canto is there, the second canto mostly is about the Sarga, the creation that Brahma executes by the potency given by Lord Krishna, like that. So then we enter into third canto, third and fourth canto. It's a whole chunk of information where Maitreya is answering the questions of Vidura. So many questions. I forgot, somebody counted them. I don't know how many. 30 plus, 40 plus. Just like Arjuna asked 34, 35 questions in the Bhagavad Gita. There are so many questions. It's just questions after questions after questions. And then the answers that the different speakers give is by retelling the narration of certain parts of the Bhagavatam by previous speakers, right? From Lord Krishna that tells the seed verses or the Chatushloki verses of the Bhagavatam to Lord Brahma, and then Brahma tells it to Narada. In this way, the chain of disciplic succession is established. It's like Krishna refers to the same principle in the Bhagavad Gita in chapter 4, Evam Parampara Praptam, one of the most quoted verses by Srila Prabhupada. And why is this important? Because we need to understand that we cannot reach Krishna directly. We need to go through the devotees, like that. And it is explained also in several sections of the Bhakti Shastras that a materialistic devotee or a neophyte is someone that thinks that I can just love Krishna. I can, okay, this is Krishna, and I can just love him like that, and sometimes we see those things, particularly, there are different variations of that. In India, sometimes you see people carrying deities and kissing them and doing all sort of things that are not prescribed by the acharyas, but because that sentiment is there. And we may see some good, but and maybe people like myself are not in a position to criticize, but the acharyas have criticized certain things for clarifying what is the process, what is the right way to do things. So that's Bhagavatam. Bhagavatam, just like Prabhupada the subtitle of the Nectar of Devotion, he called that book The Complete Science of Bhakti Yoga. The Complete Science of Bhakti Yoga. And Prabhupada often spoke about this process as a science. This is how it is. This is how it works. Right? So this is, as Bhaktivinoda Thakur says in his book, Bhagavat Marichiyartak Mala, that the description of the Lord pastimes are not just for entertainment or just for getting some information, some historical thing, something that is, this is wonderful. And many people in India actually think that this is, mythology, right? This is, and sometimes some of the commentators say that the impersonalists don't touch the Bhagavatam, right? It is said that they have play around with other Vedic texts, but they don't touch the Bhagavatam. That's what I always heard. So I remember a few years ago we were in Rishikesh with my wife, and we were just doing the parikram, and across the river where all the ashrams are. The Beatles were there, and also Prabhupada was there somewhere. And then I saw somebody selling some books, and then I thought, that's interesting. Sometimes you find things like that very unique. And then I saw a Bhagavatam, like the one that we have, what's it called? The retold story. What is it? Dharma, Krishna Dharma? Is that the one? Yeah. And then you have all the Bhagavatam in one book. And then I saw the Bhagavatam, the complete Bhagavatam, something said. And then I started looking at it, and I thought, that's nice to have a bit of a summary of the Bhagavatam. And then sure enough, when I start reading the translation, then they start distorting the words of the Bhagavatam, saying and the ultimate Brahman and this, that, and then I thought, and then I just put it down, and I just had a kind of a vision. What would Prabhupada think if I would get that book? And I was, and my wife was like looking into her purse and see, how many rupees? And then I asked the fellow, I said, how much you want? And then, it's cheap, right? I don't know, 50 rupees, 70 rupees, something so cheap. $1 plus. And then I said, hold on. And then I was just like, and then I looked again and again, like 2-3 parts of all the book, exactly the points where the author had just distorted the words of the Bhagavatam and making Brahman as the supreme and the formless, etc., etc. So then I just put it down and said, no. I don't want to get Prabhupada's curse here in this holy place. So that's the idea of the Bhagavatam, is to present Krishna. That's what it is. Ravinda Sarup Prabhu, in one of his seminars, he says, we have a date with Krishna. So Srila Prabhupada brought the Bhagavatam, which is not different from Krishna, right? And he's introducing Krishna to us. Now, so we often hear the Bhagavatam basically has 3 main points or 3 main subjects, right? One is to present Bhagavan, Krishna, the absolute truth, the supreme person. The other one is to present the bhakta, the devotee, the lover of Krishna, the servant of Krishna, manifesting his full original or constitutional position as servant, a loving servant of Krishna, the bhakta. So we have Bhagavan, we have the bhakta, and then we have the process. What is the process to connect with him? And that's bhakti. Simple, we may say, simple. So whenever we're reading the Bhagavatam or any of the Bhakti Shastras, is with that purpose, to understand these 3 things. So what is that we are discussing in this 3rd canto? And as I said earlier, the 3rd canto is perhaps when we sort of open shall we say, the mind or the heart of Krishna, and then he's manifesting his, what does he say, the verse? His terrible anger. His terrible anger. Just today I thought, I don't want to bring my phone because phones sometimes are a distraction. Just when I need it the most, I didn't bring my phone, right? So it's all right. So just leave it. Better that way. So basically, in this verse, Krishna is manifesting his emotions. And what is this emotion? Who remembers? Anyone remember from the reading of the verse? We repeated it several times. Anger. Terrible anger, he says. So what does that indicate? That the Lord is a person. He is the supreme person. Prabhupada would always add the word param. You notice in the Bhagavad Gita is very, very clear. Purusham, param purusham. The best person, he called him. In the Bhagavatam, satyam, param satyam. The supreme truth. Always the word param. Ishvara, parameshvara. So that word, every time it comes, it's to indicate Krishna. Brahman. Arjuna asked in his 8 questions in the 8th chapter, Itaket Brahman. What is Brahman? And Prabhupada explains very clearly in his purport, Param Brahman. Param Brahman means Krishna. So the first point is that he is a person, but he is the supreme person. But if we take just the person aspect, just like any one of us, we have likes and dislikes. And what's that saying, that if somebody presses your buttons, what does that mean? That it gets you upset, right? Means that they say something that you don't like, right? Sometimes a way that people call us or a way people treat us, like that, is press my buttons. That means that there are things that you like and things that you dislike. Even if you are very transcendental and very advanced, there are things that you dislike, right? So in the same way, Krishna is a person, and as a supreme person, he has also likes and dislikes. And what is something that Krishna dislikes? You all know. The demon. Straight to the point. He doesn't like demons. What does he like? What's that? When the devotees are offended, yeah. And as Krishna explains in the 4th chapter, he comes because he has a particular mission. And what is that mission? Famous verse, one of the most quoted verses from Srila Prabhupada. Paritranaya sadunam, pinasaya chaduskritam. I come to protect my devotees, and I come to destroy the miscreants, like that. So the background story of this pastime, when Krishna is about to kill Hiranyakashipu in the form of Varaha. It's quite interesting, been doing some research about this pastime, because I've been able to, I haven't been able to come so much because of an injury, and I've been hearing the classes online, and some of the questions and things that have been raised in the discussions, different Bhagavatam classes, quite interesting. Yesterday, the question that what happens to the inhabitants of the earth, right? Was it yesterday with Maharaj, Mukunda Maharaj? And I was hearing a class from Ramapat Swami on this exact verse, and someone asked the same question. I was just thinking about that question. I said, where can I find that question? And Krishna is there, right? And then he says, and the question was exactly the same question. And then he says, well, we can assume that people were killed. And that was the intention of the demons, actually, to kill others. That's that anger, that envy, it's manifested in a very violent act, to the point that Hiranyakashipu wanted to kill Krishna, Vishnu, Varahadev, like that. So in other words, we are entering into how Krishna feels He has, just like we get angry, Krishna gets angry. It's not the same, of course. Let me qualify that statement. So, okay, Krishna gets angry, I get angry, so we're equal. That's why Arjuna of course, everyone's playing a part. Arjuna very expertly asks the question to Krishna in chapter 4, the only question that we find in that chapter. And what is that question? Who remembers? Krishna is telling, I told this knowledge, the science of yoga, to the great kings of the past, to Vivaswan, to Manu, etc. Right? And then he's making his entry, just like a lecturer or a teacher, a professor that walks in and says, I taught the prime minister of that, and I taught to this person and that person, right? So it's like impressive, and everyone pays attention, right? So Krishna is making his entrance as the teacher of the Bhakti Yoga science, and he has taught to Vivaswan, Manu, and other great personalities, right? Remember that part? And then Arjuna asks something. Arjuna, who remembers? Anyone remember? Bhakti Shastri students? Arjuna asks a question that it's so well placed, and Prabhupada elaborates on that point. He asks, how come you, right, taught this science to Vivaswan? What does he say? When he's senior than you. In Vedic tradition, you don't instruct your seniors. Yeah, you have to listen and learn. That's why the word, the only Upanishad that Srila Prabhupada translated and commented is the Sri Upanishad. And Upanishad means that, to sit close and to sit low. That's what it means. So confidential teaching means that we come close to someone who's higher than us, Upanishad. That's why the Upanishads are considered the most confidential teachings of the Vedas. So Arjuna is asking Krishna, how is it that you taught this to son, to the God? Huh? How is it? He's senior than you. Right? But the real question is, are we equal? Right? We are standing here at the same level. Right? And in fact, Arjuna is giving orders to Krishna. Correct? Because he's the driver. Right? Like you have an Uber driver, take me here, take me there, taxi driver, rickshaw driver. Yeah? Here, there, this and that. Yeah? So, and then Krishna opens up, and then he says, no. Ajopi samabhyayadma. My appearance is inconceivable. Prakritim swamadistaya. By my own nature, I manifest. So I was hearing some classes about Lord Varaha appearance, 2 classes at least, in the little red radio-like looking thing with Prabhupada's classes. And it's very nice how Prabhupada presents in such a simple way. You see, a very important concept in the Gita and in the Bhakti Shastras, even in the Nectar of Devotion, the first part is to explain how karma works, right? Dharma, karma, this. And so nicely how Prabhupada explains. You know what karma means, right? Karma means, what is your translation for karma? We all know, but sometimes different people give different. What is your understanding of karma? And no wrong answers, I know, because you're going to get it right. Yeah. What's karma? Action. Reaction. Work. Duty, etc. Right? Prabhupada says, karma, in the absolute sense, philosophically means punishment. Punishment. That's Prabhupada, right? Really, it's like a good cook. He knows how to put the spices, and poof, I was just like spacing out, and then and I rewind it. I said, karma means punishment. Because of karma we are here. Because of karma we got this body, etc. Karma means punishment. However, Prabhupada explains, the same word is used in relationship to Krishna. Janma karma chame divyam, right? In that sense, we can say karma is action, right? It's not punishment. And then Prabhupada says, karma, when it applies to Krishna, it means enjoyment. How brilliant, Prabhupada, right? It's explanation. For us, karma means punishment, suffering. Oh, it's my karma, Prabhu. Oh, I broke this. It's my karma. That's typical language of the devotees. But every time Krishna does some karma, that means he's enjoying. That's the difference. So, when Lord Varaha is getting angry and he's about to finish this demon, Hiranyaksha, right? He's enjoying. That's what Prabhupada explains. He's enjoying, right? So, this is the idea. He is a person, right? And as any other person, he has personal likes, personal dislikes. He has certain characteristics. And the process of the Bhagavat process, the Bhagavat path, or the Bhagavat school sometimes, it's called, is meant for us to learn who is Krishna. Prabhupada brought Krishna in his books, in his heart, in his words. And he presented Krishna to us. He introduced Krishna to us. And then by his agency, we have the chance to start knowing him first, then serving him, and eventually loving him. That is the idea. But there is a problem. There is a big problem. So, what is that problem? The real problem. What is that problem? In that context, Prabhupada, in his passport, in the Indian passports, it says occupation. I don't think Australia has that, right? Doesn't say occupation. That I remember had, I think 3 passports, but anyway. So Prabhupada, in his passport, in the occupation section, he wrote teacher. He wrote teacher. So he came to teach, right? So when Prabhupada came to teach us, he prays. There are 2 prayers that he wrote just before getting down, one after the other. The dates are there. And then he identifies the problem. He knew what he was. He never has been in the West. It was the first time. Prabhupada was planning to go to Burma, was one. And also he was planning to go to Japan, right? And therefore he produced that book, The Light of Bhagavat. And also he wrote this kind of thesis, which is the basis of the book, what's that? Easy Journey to Other Planets. So Prabhupada was preparing himself to go to the West and to preach, right? So, when Prabhupada was coming, he knew, and he says it in those prayers. So, just to keep you awake, what do you think were the problems that Prabhupada was foreseeing that he will encounter with this audience, we being part of that? What's the problem, Prabhu? Yes, how they will understand. And why does he say that, if we go a little deeper? Why does he say that? I mean, not only, he wasn't referring at his accent or anything like that sometimes was difficult for some in the beginning. It's so nice. I was hearing the other day, that we generally hear that throughout the day, and I was thinking, in the beginning also it was a bit hard to understand, but now it's because we often hear Prabhupada, and you get to learn. It's like my Guru Maharaj, Srila Jayapataka Maharaj, he needs someone to repeat what he says because of a stroke, 70% of his body is paralyzed. So he needs someone to repeat. Interestingly, when he speaks Spanish, I don't need repetition. He speaks so well. So, I always tell him, Maharaj, tell me in Spanish. It's easier for me. So why would it be difficult for people to understand Prabhupada's message? Yeah. Mate, you had somebody put hand up there? Yes. Correct. Avidya. Right? And interestingly, how we were discussing with the devotees how Srila Prabhupada chose the Bhagavad Gita, the nectar of instruction, the Upanishad, and the nectar of devotion for the Bhakti Shastri program course, which is the foundation of the, shall we say, the academic, philosophical grounding of our spiritual life. And that's Prabhupada's planning. He says, I am waiting for your papers. I personally gonna correct these papers. I will read them. And I heard devotees who were there. I think Ramai Swami was one. He was also saying how Prabhupada was, so how's exams going? When are they going to bring? Imagine Prabhupada reading whatever you write. It will be such a nice relationship, yeah. So those two books, we have the Bhagavad Gita, which is the basis, and those two books, Sri Upanishad and Upadeshamrita, exactly deal with that, avidya. Rupa Goswami explains that because of avidya, because of ignorance, and he compares it to jaundice. And because of avidya or jaundice, what happens? We cannot taste the sweetness of the holy name, the sweetness of bhakti. And the same thing in the Sri Upanishad. Because of avidya, we cannot see Krishna. We cannot understand Krishna. We know how he's called, Krishna. We know how he looks, right? So beautiful his form, correct? But most importantly, and that is the point of this section of the third canto, is that we have, nama, we have rupa, we have guna, qualities, and then we have leelas. These are his leelas. And in his leelas, it is manifested how the person is. Yeah? When you interact with others, that's the real thing. You may dress so nicely and put perfume and whatever else whatever, and behave and shake hands and the whole thing. But if somebody presses your buttons, that's when the real you comes out, right? That's the real. So the idea of this is to understand that, number one, Krishna is a person. Number two, he has likes and dislikes. And that we as devotees, we need to learn from the previous acharyas how to understand that. So what is the word acharya? Sometimes we say it casually, mechanically, automatically. What is the word acharya? Means we always say that, right? What is an acharya? Prabhupada said we want 10 million acharyas. What is the word acharya? Means? Yeah, one who teaches by example. An example about what? How to sit properly, how to pronounce Sanskrit properly. The past time when he was giving second initiation, I think it was, I know a few times happened. I think the first one was Jayananda, right? Jayananda, the San Francisco Temple president. And he was giving him second initiation, and he was explaining to him how to chant, and he had the sheet there. And Jayananda is trying to repeat the Sanskrit, and Prabhupada just couldn't hold his laughter. And then he just couldn't take it. He was just laughing so hard, hearing his accent, his pronunciation like that. So what is an acharya? What is an acharya? Someone who teaches by example how to feel for Krishna. Because just like Krishna has feelings, Krishna has emotions, the process of bhakti is higher than any other process, because it's not only your actions, like is the emphasis on karma yoga, or your cognitive understanding, like in jnana yoga, or your posture and sense and mind control, like in Ashtanga yoga, but it's your feeling. And Bhanu Swami was giving a seminar many years back, and I remember I drew, because anyway, so he put a PowerPoint presentation, a slide, I drew one of them, and then I replicated here. And the most important thing he was explaining, it's our feelings, our sentiments, our emotions. Why? Because that's what you will carry in your next life. I mean, when you're passing from this life. And that will determine your body. That will determine your destination. That's your ticket. Where to? Next destination. From to. Your feeling. Right? And that's why the highest form of bhakti is expressed by Srimati Radharani. Right? Just like Rupa Goswami explains in the Upadeshamrita, or as we read in Chaitanya Charitamrita, the feeling of the gopis for Krishna. But of course, that's very, very far. And like the example or the comparison that we give to that little book, 11 verses, Upadeshamrita, highly recommended. Prabhupada said, print 50,000, 100,000. They have printed, I think, 10,000 initially. And they thought it's a lot. That was in the peak of the Hare Krishna explosion. And when they reported to Prabhupada, Prabhupada said, print 100,000. This should be a book for mass distribution. This can change the face of the earth. Imagine. Right? So Prabhupada had so much faith in this. However, that book is like a trampoline, right? Because, like a trampoline, and you press, jump a couple times, and then you can see high. But that's not your place. You generally tend to go down. So the basics of that book is you have to control your senses and mind. If not, we have no chance. We may sing very nicely or cook very nicely or do this very nicely. I had a long sika or beautiful saris and kuntis and all the rest, But if we don't have that feeling towards Krishna, towards the devotees, then Shrama eva hi kevalam. It's pointless, it's useless. Why? Because Jasya prasadam bhagavat prasadam. Because Krishna is a person, and he likes certain attitudes and certain characteristics of the devotees, right? Like in chapter 12, very easy to see. In chapter 12, towards the end of that chapter, one of the shortest chapters, 20 verses only, right? The devotees are described. How to be a dear devotee. And then, very dear. And then, like in India they say, very, very dear. Very, very dear. Right? That's how Prabhupada translated. No, ati priya. Not only dear, not only very dear, but very, very dear. Extremely dear. So, Krishna is a person, and Krishna likes the devotees. Krishna likes the attitude of the devotees. He tells Uddhava in the 11th canto, he says, imagine this, right? I remember the first time I read it, he says, Krishna telling Uddhava that when devotees pay obeisances, they don't even care if the place is dirty. Like sometimes when you go on parikram, in India particularly, in the West, things are, nicer, cleaner, more organized. And sometimes it's quite dirty. Or like Rupa Goswami says, when you go to the Ganga sometimes can be, a little challenging, right? Because you see things floating and like that. But Krishna says to Uddhava, look, they don't care. They just throw themselves on the floor just to offer my respects. So Krishna is happy. It's just like the Supreme Father. The father likes the son to have, or daughter, mother the same, have a good attitude. That's all. That's all what Krishna wants. In chapter 12, he says the same thing. If you cannot do this, just do that. And if you cannot do that, just do this. Right? And he says, at least do something. Do something. That's the mood of Krishna, particularly manifested in the form of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And then we get the parampara, and then we get Srila Prabhupada and his representatives. And here we are trying to do something. So today is the beginning of this wonderful Shravanam Kirtana festival. Rupa Goswami explains that for people who are struggling, devotees are struggling, endeavoring sadhakas, Shravanam Kirtana is the basis. Raganugas and people who are more advanced is Smaranam, always thinking of Krishna. Like Rupa Goswami says, 24 hours a day. But in my case, I'm not at that level, so we need to be serious about our Shravana, our Kirtana, our Japa, our humility in relation to the holy name and the devotees. Okay, so we stop here. If there's any questions or anything, comments, please. Questions? Should we read the verse? I don't know, it's too hard. Okay. Srila Prabhupada ki, Gantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Jai Gaur Premanand.